So the first thing, the most important thing, is keep good spiritual company. This is so essential, it's not even funny. Keep good company. I remember when I went back to college and I had a choice between UCLA and UC Santa Barbara, I decided to go to UC Santa Barbara because Santa Barbara is a much more beautiful and peaceful place than LA. However, there were no churches or gatherings from the tradition that I follow in Santa Barbara, and there were in LA, and I still chose Santa Barbara, and what happened next was really bad. By the way, I'm Cyril Charles Wohrer, or Chandra, and somehow or other I'm one of the first adopters, early adopters in America, of those who are American born outside of the Indian community, to adopt what's called Krishna consciousness, or Bhakti Yoga, or Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And this video, as well as this channel, is dedicated to talk about my experience, my 30-year-long experience. So if you're interested in Indian philosophy, ultimately in spiritual wisdom, because it has nothing to do with India in the ultimate sense, then please do subscribe. So coming back to Santa Barbara, LA, I ended up in Santa Barbara, and my spiritual life suffered because I didn't have that fellowship, and as a result, it was harder, much harder for me to follow the 4 rules that I've sort of made a vow to follow. No sex outside of marriage, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. The illicit sex part was the hardest. And so, as a principle, if you're serious about your spiritual life, seek fellowship and don't stop. Don't end up being alone, because if you're alone, you're just not going to make it. You're not going to be as enlivened spiritually, and more importantly, or as equally important, you're going to be weak, spiritually speaking. Let's go back. The second advice, or the second mistake which you should not make, is to artificially renounce your material, your physical, your in-the-world duties or responsibilities in the name of spiritual, realizations, or in the name of your spiritual life. That is called false renunciation. In other words, you give up, your responsibilities towards your children, or towards your wife, or towards your husband, or towards, your career or your education. You drop out of college, for example, as I did, and then you suffer the consequence. I was advised, still, I took the decision, so I take the blame, but I was advised to drop out of college in my first year at Cornell University to go live as a monk in some ashram in central France. Now, living as a monk was a great experience, and I don't regret that, but I could have done that easily after I graduated. My parents didn't care if I, remained a loose Catholic, or if I was an atheist, or if I became a devotee of Krishna. But they were, especially my mom, very concerned that I get a good college education. And so, based on some really bad advice by some head pastor in some temple in Paris in the mid-90s, I dropped out of Cornell to join the ashram, as we say, and that cost me a $9 million disinheritance from my mom, who was so disappointed that, the Hare Krishnas had, in her own words, stolen her son. They were not going to steal her money. And so she wrote this document to the effect that, if she died untimely, her whole fortune, or no, 9/10 of her fortune would go to the LA Opera. Lord have mercy! And not to her son. And as fate would have it, she died an untimely death. She got cancer at age 59, and I was still a monk at that time. And so, I got the rude awakening news from her lawyer that, $9 million could have gone to me. It was her only son, but she decided, probably, unwilling, or not unwillingly, but à contre-cœur, as they say in French, with a heavy heart, to, give it to the LA Opera. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, you have Arjuna, who wants to renounce his duty as a warrior. And Krishna says, no, buddy, you don't renounce your duty. You renounce your materialistic or your selfish consciousness, but you continue working in your, natural psychophysical conditioning or makeup. You just change your consciousness and work for me now, or do your work as an offering to me or God. So remember, just because you're spiritual does not mean you have to leave society. Of course, if you're inclined to be one of those 1 in a million who become monks, then whatever. Become a monk for all we care. It won't make you more spiritual. It's just maybe something that you like to do on a psychophysical nature. Okay, have fun doing it. But becoming a monk or renouncing the world and moving into an ashram or some monastery or some cave somewhere will not necessarily make you more spiritual. And the perfect example is Arjuna. He was a family man, a politician, and yet he was considered to be one of the greatest souls that ever lived on this planet. Let's go back one last time. Dinner's waiting actually for me, and I'm glad you're here. Again, if you want, please do subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. And, if you have any questions or comments or criticism, please put them in the comment. I check. Finally, the third and final mistake that you should not do. Don't stop hearing scripture. Whether you're a Christian and you read the Bible all the time, or I'm not even going to say if you're a Muslim and you read the Quran, because I have a serious problem with Islam. I don't have problems with, innocent Muslims. But I do have an issue with the Quran. I do have an issue with Islam because I think its political, aggressive agenda to take over the world literally cannot be separated from its theology, unfortunately. But anyway, still, they pray to God, and that's something. Let's just be non-politician after what I just said. I mean, you get my point. So just like Muslims read their Quran and Christians read their Bible and Krishna devotees read the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam and other texts like that, you gotta keep close to scripture, because scripture, at least in the Vedic tradition of Sanatan Dharma, the one that I talk about on this channel, is full of spiritual strength. By contacting scripture or lectures based on scripture, you directly connect with divinity, with source, with God, and that gives you strength. Conversely, if you don't continuously on a daily basis reconnect and continue, connecting with God through scripture or through, lectures or workshops or conferences or sermons on scripture, then as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, actually, if you work out of your own ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So remember, we live in a very contaminated world. Our consciousness is very fragile. We get affected very easily, and therefore it behooves us to remain strong. And if we don't hear scripture regularly, we will not be strong. We will lose our strength, our spiritual vision. Listen, as I said, I'm a 31-year into Krishna consciousness, first-generation American convert to Krishna consciousness. I've spoken about this in another video I made, in which I give more details. So if you're interested in my story, please do watch the video that pops up right now. Thanks for watching, and Hare Krishna.